You're listening to QCast, presented by Qcella Media. Please consider giving generously to Qcella's nonprofit mission. To find out more about our mission and to make a donation, visit our website at qcast.qcella.org. Your tax-deductible donation will help us continue bringing you quality podcasts just like this one.
I may be bruised, but I'm not broken. You can't take away my soul. You tried to tell me I don't count, but I know in my heart that's not true. So you cannot take me down that path. I'll make it without you. I may be bruised, but I'm not broken. My life counts for something, and you wake up and I'll be gone. You'll know that you were wrong. Welcome to my show, Shades of Gender. I'm your host, Terry Ryan. Thank you so much for listening, as we'll be talking all about gender identity, including the transgender, crossdressers, non-binary gender, gender fluid, and all individuals who self-identify with these groups. The definitions of these individuals are often misused and certainly misunderstood. Our goal is to identify these groups, listen to their stories and their journey in life to get a better understanding of who they are and how they're doing in life. So, welcome to Season 2, and I am very, very happy to be able to continue with our show, Shades of Gender. I have a guest on today, Molly, who is from Chicago, calling in. Hi, Molly.
Hi.
Hi. Nice to have you join us on the show. I just want to frame it a little bit before we get into Molly and Molly's story and where Molly fits on the gender scale. As I say, I talk about not putting labels on gender identity, and then I do that. But it helps when you're in radio to be able to kind of frame it for our audience, because there's so much, lack of information on people that have gender identity issues. And I just, as Molly knows, I've known Molly maybe for 6-7 years. And to watch Molly and watch individuals as they've gone on their journey in gender identity has been and continues to be very fulfilling for me to be able to get these stories out, which is so important as to, I think, for acceptance. You know, we're afraid of what we don't know. So, Molly, I do want to say that you, as I said, I've known you for a while. And when I first met you, I think you've gone on your journey now in your gender identity and becoming your authentic self. So maybe we should start with where you are today on the gender scale, and then maybe back up a little bit on some of your journey of how you got here.
Oh, okay. I guess it would. Like you said earlier, there's so many different labels, and they get used interchangeably sometimes. I'm a transgender woman. That's it.
Right.
I could say I'm trans feminine. I could say, I'm trans feminine identified, but. The bottom line is I live my life as a woman, and that's who I am. Which is,
makes it much simpler. I'm still surprised at how many terms are coming out, to describe kind of a not a basic, but like you said, you're a transgender woman. So, as a transgender woman, I know I've gone through a process and to actually, obviously be here and living as a transgender woman, not to take away from what your internal feeling was. But let's back up a little bit and talk a little bit about, your journey, your situation with your relationships, married kids and your profession, so people understand that you have other in addition to being a transgender woman, that you're a person. So.
Well, I have a life.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not,
I mean, we're not,
not
like a little object you put, like, let's put a little transgender woman on the shelf. I mean, that's right.
That's like I tell people who are, going through the process of transition, that transition is a process. It's not a life. So don't forget about the rest of your life. The relationships and your work and your,
I
what
love
you
that.
are.
That's a great way of saying it. I never really looked at that, but you become so obsessed with the transition, right? I mean, it's like once you make that decision that you want to transition, I suppose it becomes all consuming. I don't know. I mean, tell us about, when I met you, I think you self-identified more in the cross-dressing spectrum, or more.
Well, no.
Right?
When I started out, this is a decades-long process.
Right.
It goes back to my late 20s, early 30s, and when I first started cross-dressing, I didn't have any language to describe anything else. I didn't know any transgender people, and then I met some people who were what they used to call back in the day transsexuals.
Right.
That's a term that's fallen out of favor.
And then where did you meet these, when because you came out, and you came out in your late 20s, and I think we had discussed before, but our audience doesn't know that as not I don't want to say typical, but many cross-dressers start, looking at and really self-identifying with the opposite gender at an early age, 5, 6, 7, and clothing and of the like. But you really, your earlier experience with this was not self-identifying as the opposite gender early. I mean, would you say that you were late in terms of, later in terms of really?
I was like a lot of people in my my generation. I grew up in the 50s and 60s,
mm-hmm.
and there was no vocabulary for whatever you felt. And, I didn't know anything about gender other than I was a boy, and I was treated like a boy, and I didn't know there was anything else besides being a boy. And it's also true that people come to the reality of their true gender identity at different times. A smaller percentage of people come to be aware of who they are when they're 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Right, because you're a child. Right.
Well, but they're much more. It's much easier for them to get to that place today because there is more information out there for their parents. 4-year-old boys and girls who are cisgender, who are just regular kids, they know they're a boy or they know they're a girl at 4 or 5. And they start differentiating themselves in school at about that time. So the boys know that they're different from the girls and vice versa. And there are some trans kids who are that way, but there's an equally large number of trans kids who either know and do nothing about it. They bury it because they know it's not socially acceptable, or they just are kind of oblivious to what's going on with them. And that was certainly very true in the 50s and 60s.
Right. Well, I think we forget, as you say, in the 50s and 60s, it was, you didn't have the terminology or even people to, identify. People weren't out talking about it. So you wouldn't even know, you didn't even question what you were because you had nothing else to be. It's like you said, I'm just a boy.
When you live in the country of the hinterlands of upstate New York, there's your neighbor a mile down the road and the cows out back.
Exactly. Right. Right. Was that where you were?
Yeah, I was in a very rural part of Onondaga County around Syracuse, New York.
Oh.
And it was literally my nearest neighbor was almost a mile down the road. My nearest contemporary neighbor, another kid.
Right.
And they just weren't very many people. And my high school was totally white, totally middle class.
Right.
It was like right out of a Hollywood movie for nondescript.
Right. Yeah, that's how I used to describe the suburb I grew up in, which was just like whiter than white, and not too much going on there. It. So how big was your high school? Was it like 80 kids or graduation?
Oh no, it was huge.
Oh, okay.
Was
so
huge.
they grabbed all of you from how many?
It was 2,400 kids.
Wow.
And the school district itself was 120 square miles.
Oh, wow.
You think I was raised in Kansas?
That's quite something. So here you are. Tell me about then your early life with your family. So were you? Did you have brothers and sisters? And
Yeah, I'm the oldest. I'm the oldest of three.
Mm-hmm.
And my parents had us in rapid succession. And so there's only 4 years between me and my sister, who's the youngest.
Mm-hmm.
And we were, we spent a lot of time playing with each other because there wasn't anybody else. But by the time I got to high school, I was, in every activity you could get your hands on, just because I was bored out of my gourd to go home every night. So,
right. So that was your social life, and so you had two sisters. Were you the only boy, or was it a?
No, I have a brother and a sister.
Okay, so are they aware of your transition today? I mean, what kind of relationship do you have with them?
Oh yeah, I am open and out to everybody, and I started doing it. I was really closeted for a real long time. As I was struggling with trying to figure out what the heck I was, I came out to my ex-wife about 15 years ago, maybe.
So,
and I came out to my brother and sister about the same time.
Same time. So we should back up here. So you're by profession a lawyer.
Yes.
You're living in Chicago. You had a very long-term marriage, and you have two kids, right?
I do.
Okay. And so, on the outside, it would appear that you had a pretty, cisgender type of existence and family. And your wife did not know when you got married. Did she have any idea that you had any type of femme side at all?
No, neither did I.
Okay. All right, because you were like in your 20s when you met her, and you got
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we got married, and I really hadn't. There were little events that got me thinking about things.
Yeah, because it's interesting. I think that what I'm trying to get to is a connection, and I'm sure you've spent a lot of time again on this journey. But for our audience, here you are really not feeling guilty, not feeling bad, because you haven't really come into your own until your late 20s, maybe early 30s. What set this off, and what little things are you talking about as a late bloomer, I guess, into coming into your own authenticity of who you are? What was happening?
Well, so this would be around early 70s. I came to Chicago, and I've met some people who were transsexuals. They were trans, and I didn't really know very much about them, but they were pretty wild and crazy, interesting people.
How did you meet them?
And
where would you meet these people back in the early 70s? Was this wasn't an office function? Was it at a bar or something? Or
it's a bar. Today we have drag queens who are predominantly gay men who dress up in drag and do this theatrical kind of event. But back in the early 70s, if you were trans, there weren't a lot of jobs for you, especially if you were trying to live as a woman. And so there were two jobs that basically people fell into, either cosmetology of some kind or working in a female impersonator bar. And I wandered into one of those bars one night and was sort of blown away. And as I got to know the girls, or the women who worked there, they were really just kind of regular, down-to-earth people. And
was this at the Baton Club in Chicago? Was this, or was it a
no? It was another one. It was a similar kind of place, but it was closer to where I lived. It's been closed for decades.
Right, but for our audience, he's kind of the Baton Club in Chicago, and it was, and I think it's still there, but a pretty sophisticated show, and
it's a production.
A nicely done production. So the image just wasn't this wasn't a sleazy type of bar. These were people that were, wonderful stage performances, and just a nice hangout. Usually, nice piano and all that kind of thing. So
yeah.
Mm-hmm. So
once I was introduced to it, then somebody else introduced me to women's clothing, and when I had a makeover done, and I got all dressed up and had makeup and a wig and the whole thing. And I said, oh, well,
Oh, so this was your unveiling, in a sense of to yourself. This was a transformation. When you looked in the mirror, it just felt so good to you, right? So comfortable.
Yeah, it was like, where has this person been hiding all my life?
And you were married at this time, right? Molly, you were married already, or?
Yeah, I think I've been married for a year or two or something.
Oh, okay, so it was early in your marriage.
It was. Just to be clear, it wasn't a sexual thing. It was just I just wanted to see what I looked like, and it really it resonated with me, and so that got me into my 30s when it was what I call my cross-dressing period.
Right.
Where I thought, it's just about, going out and dressing up. And
so did you start doing that when you, as a cross-dressing? So would you look for opportunities then when you traveled, or, that your wife obviously didn't know, to do that with these girls, or how did you integrate that into your life?
I met some other people who cross-dressed, and I would hang out with them, and we, I would periodically go through, I can't do this anymore, and throw out all my clothes.
They call it purging, right?
The purge.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The purge.
Right. You build, and then what a shame, right? You build up all these fabulous clothes, and then you got to get rid of them. It's expensive.
Well, the first purge wasn't so fabulous. It was an easy one to do.
Okay.
But by the time I got into my 40s, I knew that this was. I made two rules. If I was ever going to purge, I was going to give it to somebody who would like it.
Yes.
But I actually never did a purge again.
I said, it's expensive. I think it'd be too cheap to get rid of it, just in case. I don't know. I sound like an addict, but I'd have a hard time getting rid of it.
And when you're my size, trying to find things that are attractive and fit.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Isn't that easy?
Well, okay, so let's do a visual here. I forgot, you're pretty tall. How tall are you?
Well, back then I was 6'2". I've shrunk to 6'1" now.
Okay, so you're tall, and you've got a lean kind of frame, right? Long legs, yeah, right.
But I have I have wide shoulders and no big hips. Well, back then I didn't have hips.
But slender and long legs, kind of a gymnast, or I don't know.
That would be giving me too much credit.
So
let's just say I had a more athletic look.
Right. Okay. So you're funny. All right. So we're in our 40s. You're purging. You're putting it away. Your wife knows nothing about it. In the meantime, you have 2 kids. You're into family. Yep. You're supporting them. I forgot what your ex-wife did. Was she a professor or something? What did she do?
No, she started off as sixth grade teacher.
Oh, teacher.
And then she decided that she didn't want to do that anymore, so she went to work for a big bank and ended up in training. And then she saw what they were paying the outside training consultants to do training programs, and so she became a training consultant. And that's what she's been doing since the early 90s.
Early 90s. Well, I know that you were, so you're in your 40s and you still stay with your wife. She didn't know. When did you finally feel like you needed to come clean with her? Did she actually catch you in the act, or did you just...
The guilt of trying to keep this secret was killing me.
Yeah.
And that's when I started therapy to try and figure out, why am I this way? Mm-hmm. And of course, the answer is you are this way because you are.
So you started going to a therapist, and they said, you're trying to sort through it, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what's going on and where does this all fit together, and because I knew it wasn't going to go away.
Right.
Whatever these feelings were, they weren't going to go away. They were only getting stronger. Mm-hmm. So, I gotten to the point where I came to accept that there was no medical, biological, organic reason that you could point to. I'm not mentally sick. I'm not crazy. Mm-hmm. It's just something people are.
And you felt? Did you got that validated by going to a therapist, which I think is very wise. If you're struggling with a life-changing issue, to talk to a professional and say, I need a third party here. Am I crazy, or what do you think?
Well, yeah.
I have a wife. I have 2 kids. I'm a lawyer. What's going on with me here? So you went to therapy for a while, and she sorted it out, or he sorted it out for you, to at least say you're not crazy, and that this is who you are.
Yeah, we sorted it out together.
Oh, you okay?
And then I was, and the coming out process to my wife was rather abrupt because I didn't have the control over it that I thought I would have. I was trying to figure out how the best way to tell her was, and but we got our signals crossed on when she was coming home, and I came home one night from being out with some friends, and I didn't do a particularly good job at taking all my makeup off.
Oh, jeez.
And she looked at me and said, "Where have you been?" And I said, "Out with friends." And why do you have eyeshadow on?
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
So
she was totally taken back by this. You did hide it well for years. You weren't leaving out your bras and panties and your stilettos,
no.
So you really were quite good, except for like you said, you didn't have time to take off that eyeshadow. So she's wondering, after what, you're married maybe 20 years or so, you're coming home and no,
oh yeah, it was,
right? Why are you wearing green eyeshadow? Yeah. So how did you? What did you do? Did you come clean right there? Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. It wasn't like I was going to keep it a secret anyhow.
Right.
I didn't deny it, and I started. She was like, and of course, she went right to the first place almost everybody goes to. Well, you're gay.
Oh yes,
I said,
I don't know many gay men that wear green eyeshadow. Unless they're in drag, so it's so silly. Yeah.
So she went through. I gave her some things to read and some things to look at, and
you self-defined yourself as a cross-dresser back then, right? Is that the term you used?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. And I had no intent. The thought of transitioning was not radar. I just wanted to be able to go out and hang out with my friends.
Yes, and that was a mix of cross-dressers and people that were trans, right? Combo? Your friends in that world?
Yeah. And so we had this rule. It was like don't ask, don't tell in the military. But I didn't go out very much. I was too busy with the rest of my life. And then I hit this period of time in my late 50s when I was just becoming increasingly anxious and it was difficult for me to keep the glue together. And I had realized in that time period that there was a lot more to my identity than I had given myself credit for. So I was back in therapy and trying to figure out why I had these feelings.
Right.
And why, when I looked in the mirror, I was looking for a woman and I wasn't seeing it. And I snuggled right up to a breakdown. And the psychiatrist I was seeing said, you really need to, we need to put you on hormones.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when it'll get rid of a lot of this. We think it will get rid of a lot of the anxiety and the feelings that you're having.
So they put you on female hormones to help balance out your psyche, or
just to get my brain and my body more on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
I was just feeling completely disconnected from myself.
Right.
And the estrogen, it worked.
I've heard this before, though. Did you have a high level of testosterone at the time?
I've always had.
Yeah. No, it's interesting because, I'm starting to see some patterns with my friends and guests and of trans women. And, so many of them that I speak with of late that have actually gone through somewhat of a similar, to you in terms of transition and really having to, to be the woman they are. They were very high in male, in testosterone, and that the hormones were like the beginning of being able to balance out who they are. But it was really the same kind of angst, just feeling like you're just going nuts, like you're just totally out of sorts. Yeah.
Yeah, and
I give you credit. You got help. I mean, some people are suicidal, and part of the reason I do this show is I just feel no one should ever. Not get help or feel that they can't be who they are and not be, to come out and be their authentic self. There's just too many people I speak to that have, especially in the trans world, that have tried to commit suicide.
The working number is 40%, especially of the kids.
Yes. Yeah.
40% of trans youth will either attempt or seriously contemplate suicide.
Yeah, that's really high. It's because they don't, I mean, that's that's why we can't get the show out fast enough. And, so, and to get them open to talk to counselors in school that can hook them up with therapists. I think that's so important in high schools. I know, actually in Chicago, they finally did it. They part of the union negotiation was to actually have a therapist on site in schools for, a multitude of issues. But it was so important to have that, right? I had it when I was in the suburbs.
Yeah, apropos. So one of the things I started doing as I started my transition, but I was still presenting male, was I decided to get back into coaching lacrosse again, and I'm the first assistant coach at a Chicago public high school here in the city, and I've been doing it for I guess 6 or 7 years now.
Are you then? You're
so we just
coaching a male or female team?
The boys team.
The boys, okay. And you're out, and you're living as yourself, which is as a trans woman. Yeah.
So I think it was three years ago. I was switching. I was going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, trying to be, because presentation is an important part of being trans.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause unlike a gay person is a gay person, it has to do with their sexual identity, but a trans person, we have to change our appearance to communicate to others how we feel about ourselves. It's not obvious. If you looked at me, with just androgynous.
Yeah, I see. It's a very important point you bring in up on this is that you can say yes. There's my femme side is who I am, and it's not a side. I actually am a trans woman, or I'm a woman, and then people look at you like, yeah, but you look like a man. So it's like you'd have to line up anyway, and for a society to be able to look at you as a woman, to better blend in with society, right? I mean, it's like it gives you validation to be that way. Though, like anyone, there's all different types of trans women out there, and women and men and trans men, and we all don't look alike. I mean, we all look different. I mean, we have a long way. I guess the bottom line, and I'm going to wrap up with you and have you back on the show because there's so much to talk about, and we're going to be covering more. But I think the bottom line is that we really, our society is just still, trying to get grips with what being gender identity and that it exists. And then what does it look like? And a part of that is what it looks like is many different, different people, right?
The good news is that when I came out to the boys on the team, we had this all planned out. And the principal was there, and we explained, had a real brief conversation, and we said, "Any questions?" And the kids said, "Yeah, when can we get back to playing lacrosse?" And that.
Isn't that fabulous? See, I've heard this before, and I'm so glad that you're doing that. And I really am very, very happy since we've last spoken, Molly, in your journey. I mean, you sound so much happier. I've known you made peace with your kids and your family, and divorce is always tough. I don't know where that is with your ex-wife. Are you two still friends, or?
Yeah. We co-grandparent and Super. We co-parent, and we'll get together, every now and then, just the two of us. But no, I mean, she's much happier now, and I'm much happier now. She'll even go shopping with me.
Oh, isn't that wonderful?
She would never do before.
Oh, it just makes me feel so
good.
I mean, it's a success story. It's it shows you that you have we're all looking for love in our life, and she still loves you. It's just you just have different type of lives now together. It's just different, but it doesn't mean you throw away. It's like, okay, I've transitioned, and now I'm going to throw away all those 40 years of relationships, and that you don't have to do that. I mean, if you
well, that happened right. with the friends. My family has stuck with me. Mm-hmm. The friends drifted.
I have to say, friends drift anyway. The older I get, the more I think that friends are of the moment, except for the ones that, the few. So I wouldn't be too hard on yourself on that one. But you've got a friend in me, and I look forward to seeing you when I'm back in Chicago. And we'll do that
That'd be great.
Lunch again. I thank you for being on the show. I'll have you back, and I'm just going to close out here. And I want to thank everyone for joining me today. I'm humbled to be part of the conversation on gender identity, and I invite you to keep listening. You can find previous shows online on KGay at kgay1065.com. Thank you so much. I'm Terry Ryan. Thanks.